Good evening and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this public hearing tonight. This is a public hearing for an application submitted by Thomas Darga related to a dredging and filling a wetland for a multifamily residential development and associated activities in Leelanau County. Thanks again for joining us. We're going to get started here in a couple minutes, but before we do, I just have a couple items to share, just to give you an idea of what we have in store for the evening. This is the agenda. We're going to start off giving the introduction, what we're doing right now. The big thing to be aware of is that there's going to be two parts to this public hearing tonight. There's going to be an informational session that will include a description of the proposed project and a question and answer session. You'll have an opportunity to ask a question about the application. And then we'll talk about ways to submit an official comment, and then we'll go into the official hearing portion. That's where you'll have an opportunity to make a statement for the record on this application. And then we're also going to talk about who to contact for further questions, if you have any, after the hearing. For those of you who haven't participated in a public hearing with us before, you should be aware all lines are going to be muted during the hearing, so you'll be able to hear everything we say and us, but we can't hear you. You can submit your questions at any time using the Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar. You'll see it at the bottom of your screen. But then you will also have an opportunity to ask a question verbally once we get to the Q&A part, and I'll explain how we're going to do that when we get to that part. And then also we're recording this hearing. This recording will be posted in our YouTube channel in a couple days, and you'll be able to view it again at that time, if you so choose. All right, with that, I'd like to invite our other EGLE staff on the line to turn their cameras on and introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Robin Schmidt. I'm a district representative from the Cadillac District Office, and I'm going to be the one reviewing this application and the hearings officer tonight.
And welcome, everyone. I'm Joseph Haas. I'm the district supervisor for the Cadillac and Gaylord offices with EGLE Water Resources Division. I cover 22 counties in the northern lower peninsula for the regulatory resource programs. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be here this evening.
Yeah, thanks, Robin and Joe. We're going to move right into kind of the informational session, and we don't have the applicant as part of the presentation tonight. So I think Robin is going to kind of go through what was submitted to EGLE in the application. So Robin, you're welcome to take it away. I have your slides here. Just let me know when to change the slide.
All right, thanks, Ryan. So the application proposes the basic things are a residential development for 2 house sites, including a driveway, utilities, and cutting the vegetation for view sheds in a wetland. And then they're also proposing to relocate some woody debris to create swim areas in Lake Leelanau. So you can change screens. So the project is located in South Lake Leelanau, specifically the southeast corner off of South Parker Road. Next slide. This is the site plan for the project. As you can see, Parker Road is close to the lake, and it's the development for the houses would be between Parker Road and Lake Leelanau in the wetland there, as well as the view sheds, and obviously the woody debris relocation is proposed in the lake. The other part from Parker Road east is the Elliot Trust property where the septic fields are proposed. So there would be a pump back system installed through the wetland to get to the upland fields. Next screen. This is a diagram of the proposed residential development area between Parker Road and Lake Leelanau. So the purple is fill areas for the driveway off of Parker Road to get out to proposed fill areas for 2 house sites. And then the diagonal crosshatched areas are the cutting of vegetation for view sheds off of each lakeward side of the house. And then the crosshatched areas in the lake are again that relocation of woody debris, and then identifying where they're proposing to put the woody debris in the lake. Next slide. These are some cross sections. I know they're hard to read. I apologize. These are available in my Enviro. at any time. If you have any difficulty finding this information in my enviro, just get a hold of me, send me an email, and I can send you the direct link. Next slide. Again, this is just a cross section of that utility line going back to the septic fields from the actual systems that are going to be near the residential development areas in that area, again, between Parker Road and Lake Leelanau. Next slide. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Robin. We're going to go into the question and answer session. It looks like we do have, 1 second. All right, gotcha. We do have a Nick Darga on the line who said he would be willing to answer some questions. So we will add him to the Q&A panel here. But for the question and answer session, the way we're going to do that is you can submit your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen like we talked about before. You also have an opportunity, you can raise the hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and what that will do will raise your hand in Zoom, and then we'll call on you, and you'll mute yourself, and you can unmute yourself, and you can ask your question. And then also, if there's anybody who's calling in by phone today, you can also raise your hand by selecting #2. So select #2 if you're by the phone, that'll also raise your hand, and then we'll call on you and you can ask your question. Right. So with that, okay. I'm unmuting. All right, Nick, are you on the line? I think I just unmuted you. If you want to just unmute yourself.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Okay, gotcha. Just wanted to make sure that we could hear you and that you'd be available if there was a question that came up.
Sure.
All right, thanks for being part of the panel tonight.
No problem.
All right, so we have a phone-in caller with their hand raised. So we're going to go ahead and unmute the phone-in caller 1224 and allow them to ask their question. All right.
Hi,
So
hey, Joe, can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
So my name is Mark Glenn. I sent something in response to the first letter, and I'm trying to get online. The letter that I got back the website won't let me get on this address. Can you help me with that?
Okay, so it won't let you log in to the webinar.
That is correct.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure. You might need to update your browser, or there may be a technical reason why you can't log in. But if you registered, or you should be able to use the link. If not, you can stay on the phone here, and then
I can
I'll stay on the
actually.
phone.
Okay.
Hey, Mark. Sorry, I
Yeah.
actually know Mark. Hey, Mark, Nick Darga, how you doing?
Good, Nick.
Hey, I can actually send you a link to it from mine if that works for you.
Okay, do that, will you, Nick?
Yeah, it should be so meeting login. It's going to be. There you go.
And then if that doesn't work, then we are recording this webinar, so you can look at everything afterwards. We'll be sending that link out to everyone.
So did you send that link, Nick, to my email?
I did. It should be to you any second now.
Okay. Thank
Did it
you,
pop
Nick.
in yet?
I don't know yet. Go to
Right.
my email, Andy.
You should be able to just click on that link and you're in like Flynn.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower your hand, Mark, and then unmute you. But if you have another issue, you can stay on the line and participate by phone. Other than that, like I said, the recording will be available afterwards, but I don't have another link to give you if you've already tried to log in and Nick's doesn't work.
We'll give it a shot, Joe, and thank you. You can mute me if you need to. Go ahead.
All right, thanks. Right. All right, looks like that gave us a little time for some questions to be entered in the Q&A box. Let's see here. Did I hear you say that the applicant proposes to place the woody debris in the lake? Yes, maybe, I don't know if Rob, you want to clarify what was received or if Nick has anything to add?
Yeah, so it's a proposal for relocation only. So they're not adding woody debris to the lake. They're proposing to take the woody debris that's there and move it out so that there's a 40 by 40 recreation area, if you will, without the woody debris in it.
Okay, thank you. Oops. Looks like Nick is muted. Might have accidentally. One second here. Oh, it looks like you might have to unmute yourself again, Nick. Is it still not letting you? Looks like you're unmuted on our end. Let me try to.
Oh, there we go. I just got
Okay.
the little tag. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Sorry, Ryan. I was just gonna say exactly what Robin did. Yeah, we don't plan on adding any wood into the lake. It was just two small areas we wanted to kind of open up so that you weren't stepping over a whole bunch of stumps when you're going into the lake. It's not a whole bunch either. It's kind of probably 5 or 10.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. All right. Looks like we have another raised hand. John Popa, we are going to unmute you. And then you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask your question. Looks like you're unmuted on our end. Feel free to unmute yourself. You should see a button at the lower left-hand screen with the microphone to where you can unmute yourself. But it looks like you're unmuted on our end. Are you there, John? All right. Well, oh,
Can you hear me now?
yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. These buttons and stuff. I have 3 comments.
Oops, shoot. John, can you unmute yourself again? That was my bad.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, sorry. I was trying to lower your hand. But the other thing, before you get started, so this is just so you know that this is the Q&A session. If you have a comment that you want to say on the project for the record, you can save that for the hearing portion, which will be right after this question and answer session. So with that, feel free to ask your question.
Okay, I was wondering why they didn't include any alternatives to this development, such as a different area or a different spot, or that in line, I guess.
I can answer that. If am I unmuted? Sorry.
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, we actually did explore 2 other avenues in, but this actually was the avenue of least impact. So we looked at there's trying to come in and talk to looking at the neighbors' properties to see if there was a way could we tie into driveways, or there is even that railroad tie, but any of those tie-in points actually disturbs far more wetland than the course that's currently requested.
Okay, thanks for that question. Yeah, and that answer, Nick. Let's see, any other questions at this point? Give it another second or two. Again, as I mentioned before, so this is the question and answer session. Next thing we'll do that we have on the agenda is we'll talk about the other ways to make a comment. If you didn't want to make a comment verbally tonight, and then once we do that, we'll kind of go into the hearing portion. And then we'll tell you how to make your comment, and we'll go through everybody's comments, and everybody will have an opportunity to give some comments on this application tonight. So with that, still not seeing anything in the Q&A box. And okay, looks like a phone-in caller has their hand raised, 6309. So we will unmute you, and looks like you're unmuted. You can ask your question when you're ready, phone caller.
Are you there?
Yep, we can hear an echo, so you might want to turn, I guess if you have your computer on.
There's a little feedback here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What's your question?
Yeah, my concern is, I'm a property owner right next door to the property in question or whatever. My concern is that, they're raising the grade all throughout there. So I feel like I'm going to be washed out. And what is there like an environmental study that's been done is there going to be culverts? Is there going to be, how's that all work?
All right, anyone want to tackle that? And maybe while we figure that out, I did get a request in the chat to show the maps again. So I'll be showing that while we're answering this question. So.
Yeah, so we will look at impacts from the project to the wetland. And we all know that wetlands, one of the jobs they do is storing runoff water, filtering it and releasing it. So as it relates to the impact from the driveway to that water moving through the wetland, we will evaluate that. As far like a larger watershed review, no, we don't do that, but we would look at the impacts from the project, filling, construction, all of that, and how that may affect the water in the wetland. I will say that we get this question commonly, and unfortunately that any issues that you would see as a result of a project discharging, or you believe it's shedding more water to you, it's a civil issue because there's no state law I can point to regulate that specifically. But do know that we will be looking at that as part of our review for the wetland impacts.
Yeah, because that's a big concern of mine. And, like with running culverts through, or, that Man Creek backs up all the time. That right now, I don't know. It's a big impact on me, and how, 2/10 of an acre or whatever they're proposing for the sites, and then deeding it back to the Conservancy, the other 4.5 acres or whatever. That just doesn't make any sense. How are you going to have that? How? Yeah, I don't know. It's just ludicrous a little bit to me. I don't.
If you have another question, we can take that here in a little bit. But if you have comments and concerns, you can also provide those during the hearing part, which we're gonna start here in a little bit. So if you want to hold on to those comments, we have some other questions, so I want to get to those. But thanks for your question. Okay, I'm gonna go to one that is in the queue that we have typed in. Could you provide more insight into the septic setup across the street?
Yeah, there is a sub set diagram in the lower left-hand side of that plan, which I know is hard to see, but these are available in My Enviro. But it's a system, and Nick, if you want to jump in, it's a system that's built into the uplands for the wastewater treatment.
Sure. So it's a directionally bored system. So minimally invasive. Basically, the line gets put in from the housing sites, and it gets bored underground to basically minimally bug everything in the area. And then it pops out up in the other portion or the other section of property on the areas that are designated as highland. So they've got good sandy soil, they perk, and they're kind of an ideal area for septic field. So that's the basic idea. Is we start with where the housing, the two houses would be, and pump it back up to the other system with as little of impact as we can. Not looking to dread, like tow a line in or carve a path through the woods and create berms and something like the gentleman before had said. We don't want to impact the neighbors, so we're trying to be not create a big swell or something that's going to force water towards them. The idea is to be as minimally invasive to them as possible. Just kind of put in a road, kind of like most of the neighbors have put in their roads in the past. And then do this minimally invasively and just bore it across the road so that it doesn't have to have a holding tank situation.
All right, yeah, thanks for that question and then for providing the clarification. Looks like I have another raised hand. Brent Rembold, we're going to unmute you on our end. And then looks like you're unmuted now. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for your time tonight. Just actually one question, one follow-up question on the septic. The septic question was mine. So one follow-up question, is it, would it be possible for other property owners on the street to access the area, the upland area for septic system as well?
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah, actually, we'd be happy to talk to neighbors about it. Frankly, if we're directionally boring it, we'd have to do, a similar application, I would imagine. But to me, we're all about making a good neighborhood. You guys kind of have a good group going there. We'd love to help everybody else out if we could. It's just a matter of making sure we've got enough room to do it and how many people want to do it. Sure.
Okay. That's good information. I appreciate that. And then, I think the runoff is a very fair question. I've got a creek that essentially is on my property, Belknap, and that runs alongside our place. And it's always been, it's never flooded, but I mean, it's it's a concern. I wouldn't want to. There are certain times of the year, as you might expect, where I wouldn't want to see any more water run into that creek. And so that is a concern. And I think, Robin, I thought I heard you suggest that and I'm sorry, is that out of the scope of this review? Is that what I think I heard, or is there another impact study, or is that runoff and the water management, surface water management, a part of this analysis and permit application?
Yeah, so we're not able to do like a study of the watershed to figure out what impacts the project may have to the greater watershed. We're looking at the impacts from the road fill, from if there was culverts placed, how that might improve things. So with your stream being kind of outside the scope of the project, it's not something we would evaluate.
Okay.
I can say from our standpoint, this is Nick Darga, we would be happy to talk about culverts and that type of thing to keep water flowing back and forth, is just to keep, like I said, our whole plan on pretty much everything we do is keeping good neighbors. So
sure, and I appreciate that. So I appreciate the offer, and I'm actually would like to take you up on the offer. And so do I just lob a call into your office tomorrow, or how does that work?
Well, part of it's largely going to depend on how this goes, frankly.
That's fair enough.
So, but yeah, we'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Okay.
We've got some preliminary numbers on what it's taking or what it's costing to get the septic fields put in. We'd be happy to share those with you and talk the whole process through.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Mark and Angie are you guys on now? Well, I can't respond, but I think they might. I think they received the link that I sent them.
Oh, they got it? Good.
Okay, good. Yeah, I do have actually another phone-in caller who has a question, and we have about 5 minutes left before we have to move on to the hearing part. So I want to get to that question. And then if there are any other questions, feel free to type those in because we are going to have to move on here in a little bit. But caller, last 4 digits, 1224. We're going to unmute you. And then you're able to unmute yourself. And again, if you're on the phone, because we do have quite a few people on the phone, you can select #2 to raise your hand and ask your question. That's also how you'll be making your statement. So you're unmuted. You can begin when you're ready with your question, caller.
So, wait, am I on?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, it's Mark Glenn again, and I have a question for you, Nick. And I do have we are online now. We'll get to that as soon as I get this question. I have Mike Sheffer with me and Kat Walton, both neighbors down here, both to the both to the south of me and just to the north of you, Nick. Now, let's talk about that septic system for a minute. In the seam vein is line 5. That's going under the road. That gets a fair amount of in and out traffic in the wintertime. What about frost being driven down? And what about that pipe breaking in the half mile it's got to go to the system that you have in mind? Or are we going to be protected from that bad water?
Oh yeah. So we've had this quoted by 2 separate companies. We had it quoted by Matt's Underground and Pops Excavating. I'm sure you're familiar with Pops. They're right down the road. That was one of our main concerns. Like I said, we don't want to have a line 5 incident or anybody being worried about it. So the pipe that's proposed is basically, it's a single constantly fused pipe, and they're ridiculously solid. I'd be more than happy to share the information on the ones that are spec'd on with you guys, but they're far below any frost heave. They're far below the impact. We don't want to mess with any root structure. We're trying to stay out of, the idea is get underneath absolutely everything we can and play at that level and then bring it back up. Does that make sense, Mark?
It does. So in that same vein again about the system, if you're going to turn the property over to the Conservancy, and let's just say, for instance, we do have a failure, who's responsible at that point? Conservancies are very hard to sue. You guys are easy to get at. What happens in the case of that? I want to just know what's going on there.
So part of it is there's a full warranty on the line system through Pop Excavating in this case, because we, frankly, like you said, nobody wants to get sued. Nobody wants to be held responsible for something like this. So it's a fully warranted system. Basically, they drive the line in and they get out the heck out of the way out of everything else, and they warranty the fact that that will be a closed and controlled system.
For years. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Are there any more questions before we move on to the next part of tonight's hearing? We'll
Hey,
give it
Ryan, if I can clarify
Yep.
an issue. So we often get asked during our application reviews if we're going to do a quote unquote study, right? So I want to ensure you that we're going to look at how the wetland is in the landscape and what, benefits and values it has and how it would be potentially impacted, or what modifications we could make. So it's not like we're not looking at the whole area. We are, but we're not doing a study. Like, we're not putting out measuring devices for 6 months or anything like that. So it's looking at the data we already have and looking at all of the comments that we get from the public and from DNR and making the decision at that point.
All right, yeah, thanks for that clarification, Robin. So we're to the point where we're going to move on to the next part of the hearing tonight. Thank you to all of you for asking those questions and to our panel for answering them. And Nick, thanks for being on the line and participating in that as well. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Yeah, so before we actually give you an opportunity to make some comments for the record on this application and project, you should be aware that there are some other ways that you can submit your comments. One is through our MyEnviro system. You'll be able to log on and submit those comments under submission HPK BB34 4NHCR, and you'll see the link in front of you. We'll also put that in the chat. And then also, if you want to submit by mail, you can submit that to EGLE. And I'm going to read this out loud for the people who are on the phone. EGLE Water Resources Division at the Cadillac District Office, and the address is 120 West Chapin Street, CHAPIN, and that's in Cadillac, Michigan, 49601. And I will be repeating this slide again in case you missed part of that after comments. And you should be aware the comment period after this public hearing will be open for 10 days, which will be March 10th, 2023. All right, and so with that, I'd like to invite Robin to read the opening statement to kick off kind of the hearing portion.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robin Schmidt, and I am the district representative in the Water Resources Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. I will be serving as a hearings officer tonight for this public hearing on EGLE submission HPK-BB34-4NHCR. With me tonight is Joseph Haas, Supervisor, Cadillac and Gaylord Districts. To describe how this is going to work tonight, I will begin with some background information about why we are here tonight. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide your comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read a closing statement. By way of background information, the Water Resources Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing those responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, 1994, Public Act 451, as amended. We are here tonight because Thomas Darga et al. Has proposed the following: to dredge and fill wetland for a multifamily residential development impacting approximately 0.68 acre of wetlands, to install a 26-32 foot wide footprint driveway and fill to create pads for 2 4,500 square foot residences. In addition, the applicant proposes to conduct maintained use activity of cutting vegetation in 0.36 acres to create view sheds, relocate woody debris in Lake Leelanau to create 2 40 by 40 swim areas, and install utilities in the wetland and extending to the upland septic field locations on the Elliot Trust property. The applicant proposes to grant an easement on the remaining approximately 4.40 acres of wetland on the Friske property and approximately 66.34 acres of wetland on the Elliot Trust property to the Leelanau Conservancy as mitigation. The project is located in Township 28 North, Range 12 West, Sections 11 and 12 in Solon and Elmwood Townships, Leelanau County, Michigan. In order for a permit to be granted, EGLE must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet certain criteria set by Part 301 Inland Lakes and Stream and Part 303 Wetlands Protection of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the lake and wetlands. When reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 301 of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 30106. 1, The department shall issue a permit if it finds a structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. And 2, the department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any waters or other natural resources of the state. When reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 303 Wetlands Protection of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following indications as required by Section 303.11 of Part 303. A permit for an activity listed in Section 303.04 shall not be approved unless the department determines that the issuance of a permit is in the public interest, that the permit is necessary to realize the benefits derived from the activity, and the activity is otherwise lawful. A permit shall not be issued unless it is shown that unacceptable disruption will not result to the aquatic resources. And a permit shall not be issued unless the applicant also shows either of the following. A, the proposed activity is primarily dependent upon being located in the wetland. And B, a feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in the Thomas Darga et al. Application an opportunity to provide information that EGLE can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that EGLE can only use information you provide if it relates to the criteria that EGLE must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make a note of your position, but please understand that EGLE is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. In just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking your comments. But before I do so, I need to mention that the hearing notice was published in the Traverse City Record Eagle on February 17th, 2023. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, we have already had an opportunity to describe and discuss the proposed project. Second, we will then call on those who have indicated in the registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on all those that have their hand raised in the Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing via telephone only, follow the directions of the moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to EGLE via My Enviro portal, email, or US mail. When all the comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a comment. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Each person will begin with 4 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the time allotted. If need be, we will indicate when your time has ended. I ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff is here to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. The hearing is being recorded, and your comments will be part of the information EGLE will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, ending on March 10th, 2023. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in EGLE's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the EGLE My Enviro portal website, searching for application number HPK-BP34-4 4NHCR. Thank you for your attention. We will begin calling the names of those who have indicated that they would like to make a statement.
All right, thanks for reading that, Robin. Yeah, as Robin had mentioned, I have a list of names of people who indicated during registration they wanted to make a comment. We'll start with those, and then we'll go to people who have their hands raised in Zoom. So again, if you are on the phone, you can select #2 to raise your hand. And if you're on your computer, you can select the raised hand icon at your bottom of your screen to raise your hand. And we'll call you in turn. Just a couple last things before we do get started. It's going to be 1 comment per person. If you have someone else on the line who would like to make a comment when you're called upon, let me know that, and they will have an opportunity to make their comment as well. Everybody have the same opportunity, 4 minutes. I'll give you about a 1 minute heads up before we get to the end so that you know what to wrap up your comment. And then please feel free to list your name and if there's any affiliation that you have. So with that, we're going to start. And the first person on my list is John Popa. So John, we are going to unmute you. It looks like you're unmuted, and you can begin when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I hope to be brief. I want to comment as to the need of this project. I'm an engineer, and I've been involved in many permits like this, and also with my career in nuclear power. One thing that hasn't been addressed is hardship. This project is not a hardship by a present landowner or dwelling. This is an unnecessary request. It's a development of 2 new parcels. It's not something that needs a solution of present living dwellings. In alternatives, in my experience with regulations and governments, one alternative that always comes up is to do nothing. What would happen if we did nothing? Would the plant melt down, or the person's sewage would go on a lawn? This wasn't addressed. There was nothing in that permit that said to do nothing. This is also a horrible area that is subject to high water. And I think I gave written comments on that as to our 200-year flood, but I also reviewed the FEMA flood area and stuff. And this area is really subjected to high water, as the neighbors already know. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate having a public hearing.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, John. All right, next on my list is Edward Walter. Edward, we're going to, looks like your hand is raised as well. We'll unmute you, and then you can unmute yourself and begin when you're ready. All right, looks like you're still muted. You should see a microphone icon that will, on the bottom of your screen, that will allow you to unmute yourself so that you can give your comments. So we'll give it a couple more seconds here, Edward. Looks like you're set on our end. All right, so maybe Edward, while you're figuring that out, we will move on to the next person. Also, I'll just say also, Edward, if you can hear us, then you can also call in using the call-in number as well that you should have received during registration. And we'll also go through the other ways to make a comment. So with that, we'll give you a chance. Mark, actually, Nick Darga. Nick, I've got you on the list. Did you have something, a comment that you wanted to make during this portion, or was that strictly to?
Hey, I'm there if you can still hear me.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we'll go with Edward. Since we have you unmuted, go ahead and make your comment when you're ready.
All right. Well, I own probably the biggest amount of property along the route of the septic line going through, and I own Man Creek. You know, I shouldn't say I own Man Creek, but I own the property that Man Creek comes off of onto the Elliot property. And anyway, like in 1990, you know, my property was flooded. I didn't own it then, but my property was all flooded. And then like roughly 20 years ago, I bought my property. And when I bought it, because of the flooding back there, I can see from one property line to the other. In 20 years, now I have trees, that are like 15 foot tall, 3-4 inches around. So it's starting to regrow. So my concern is any water that backs up, even if it backs up from Gus Flick's property to Parker Road, because the domino of water backing up or a domino effect, it's going to come back onto my property. My property's been a flood area before, and the records show that if you look into it, and my neighbors know it too. The only other really concern I have is that, as they bring this equipment in to put the line through, and I trust the line, but as they bring this equipment through, behind my property, a lot of people may not know, it's been cleared out for a lot of years. So they have an open path to go through it. But a lot of plants that have grown are, and I'm not an expert, so some should be maybe protected plants. So if they're going to be doing that type of deal, then they got to make sure that they move things, put things back the way it was, because I don't want stuff wrecked. And the other thing is the culvert at Parker Road floods over a lot. And thank you very much for letting me make my comments. The only other thing I would like to say is I wish we could have had a public get-together meeting. Thank you very much.
There's a second person here that would like to speak.
Okay. Yep, you can begin when you're ready.
Okay,
And
All right,
pronounce
well,
Gus Flick.
yeah, go ahead.
Tell who you are.
yeah, I'm Gus Flick. I bought Mr. Cypher's property, or is it Cypher? Whatever, Darga, whatever his name is. But my concern is, I have 37 acres. And this gentleman approached me to say, hey, can I get a thoroughfare through there and stuff? He was going to give me a little money. It wasn't much. And actually, it was a gut punch how much he wanted to give me. And you know what? And I said, no. And then he upped it a little bit. And then that was a gut punch. So I called his realtor. I said, that's got to be a 6-figure thing. And now all of a sudden this guy's doing it. And is what the guy told me was he wanted that for a legacy for his family. Okay. And then all of a sudden, the guy throws half of that up for 1.2 million. You know what? I just got to say it like it is. Call a spade a spade. That's malarkey. This guy said, he wanted this honest to God thing going down there, and it ain't right. That's all I'm saying. That's all I gotta say. And it's gonna affect my floodplain more than anybody and stuff. That's where I'm going.
And who's responsible? Who do I sue?
Thanks. Thanks for your comment. Is there anyone else on the line that needs to make a comment?
All I'm saying is the Conservancy, I was gonna sell my place to Conservancy, but I think the Conservancy is selling everybody out. It really is. It's a joke. Thank you for the time.
Yep. Thanks for your comment. Just to confirm, no other comments from this number or from this line? Okay.
No, we're good. Thank you very much.
All right. Yep. Thank you very much. Thanks for your comments. All right. So the next person on my list, Nick Darga. We're going to unmute you and then just let us, do you have a comment you want to say for this portion, or did you just indicate during registration for the Q&A session to speak? It looks like you're unmuted on our end if you're able to unmute yourself. And
hello, yes, I'm still here.
Okay, gotcha. Did you have anything further?
No, I was just going to add, it's a beautiful piece of property. We'd love to work with it, and it seems like a cool neighborhood to be part of. We had looked at, to the gentleman before me's comments, we had looked at selling half the parcel to be able to do what it takes to make this project work. and then be able to do or maintain and keep the rest of it. So hope we can be part of this neighborhood, and thank you for all your comments.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. All right, so that was the last person who is on my list. If there are other people on the line who would like to make a comment, raise your hand. In Zoom, or if you're on the phone, select #2. And I think I just had one, and then I had someone lower their hand. So if there is anybody, I don't have any raised hands right now. Okay, there we go. All right, and so I have one hand raised, and if there's anybody else, click the raise hand icon at the bottom, or select #2 if you're on the phone. So Mark Glenn, Mark, you're the one, you're next up. You're unmuted on our end. Feel free to unmute yourself and begin your comment when you're ready.
Thank you very much. So I sent a letter in opposition of this to EGLE when we first were notified of it. Do I need to read this whole letter for the record in the public hearing portion of this meeting?
That is up to you. This is your 4 minutes to say whatever you would like for the record. I think it's already been provided to EGLE. So I don't think you necessarily need to, because it's been provided, but it's up to you what you want to say with this 4 minutes.
Nope. As long as you guys have it and you know that we are in opposition of it and because of what I have written, that's fine. The other two gentlemen with me, Kent Walton, who is the new owner of real estate down here, and Mike Sheffer, who is the immediate neighbor, are both with us and very much opposed to this development.
All right. Yeah, thank you for your comment, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like I have Edward Walters' hand raised. Edward, we'll unmute you to see if there's anybody else that on your line that wants to speak, but if everyone there has already spoken once, that was your opportunity to make it everybody fair and to give everyone the same opportunity. So you're unmuted if there's somebody else who would like to make a comment. Edward, I guess just let me know.
There, go.
Yeah, is there anyone else there?
Yeah, am I there now? I'm back to Ed.
Hello?
Am I there?
Hello, this is Ed, you already gave a comment?
I did. I can't
Okay.
respond to anything.
No, this isn't a question and answer or a response period. This is just up to 4 minutes to say what you want. One person
Okay.
gets one chance. So
All right.
if you have additional comments, what you can do.
Yep, I heard you earlier. Yep, I'm there.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah.
Bye. All right. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment? Let's see here. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. And again, just to give you another minute, you can select #2 if you're on the phone to raise your hand if you want to make a comment. And so while people are thinking about it, just to let you know where we're going next with the evening, we're going to go through the other ways to make a comment again, so that if you have follow-up comments, you can send those in to us. And then we'll also give you contact information if there are additional questions. So that's where we're going to go next with tonight. All right, I'm not seeing any raised hands, so that's where we'll go. All right, so Robin, if you would like to please read the closing statement for tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your comments and cooperation. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until March 10th, 2023. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all of the comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that may still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted via MyEnviro portal, email, or US mail. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. As Robin mentioned, I've got the other ways to make a comment on the screen in front of you. It should be in the chat, and I'll also read those again for those on the phone. You can select them, you can submit them through My Enviro, event submission number HPKBB344NHCR, or by mail to EGLE, EGLE, Water Resources Division. And that's at the Cadillac District Office. And the address is 120 West Chapin Street, and that's spelled CHAPIN Street, and that's Cadillac, Michigan, 49601. And as Robin mentioned, the comment period will be open for 10 days, which is March 10th. All right, if you have further questions, you can contact Robin Schmidt. Her phone number is 231-383-5952, or by email at schmidtr1@michigan.gov, and that's MICHIGAN, which is spelled out .gov. Or you can contact Joseph Haas, who's the supervisor of the Cadillac Gaylord District, and his phone number is 989-330-9252. And Joe's email is haasj1@michigan.gov, and that's michigan.gov. And so with that, Joe, do you have any closing comments? Any final comments, thoughts for us tonight?
Yeah, Ryan, I do. I typically make at least a brief statement, and I would just thank everybody for taking the time to be actively involved in this hearing. Public involvement is a priority for EGLE, and your participation is important to us, particularly when it comes to protecting our shared natural resources for present and future generations. We work and study the resources in these same neighborhoods you live in, but we don't spend every day here. We recognize, value, and appreciate your local knowledge. As local citizens, you know best the rhythms and the dynamics of your local landscape. Your public comments are an important part of making sure our review of the proposed project is thoroughly and appropriately reviewed. Again, thank you for your participation, comments, and cooperation. We appreciate that you've shown an interest in this proposed application for a permit by taking the time to attend this hearing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe and Robin, for being our panelists and the hearings officer and running this hearing tonight. Just my final comments are, thank you all for participating in this process, and that we will be sharing a closed caption copy of today's conversation will be on our YouTube channel, which should be there in a couple days. So with that, thank you again, and I hope you all have a great rest of your evening.